Under the midday sun, the polished glass of Summit Autoworks glistened, the light reflecting off it like a beacon of success. To anyone driving by, it looked like the epitome of what a successful business should be. Rows of gleaming trucks lined up perfectly, flags fluttering in the wind, showing off a sense of pride. The building itself stood tall and sleek, trimmed with chrome, its windows offering a view into a world of shiny leather interiors and salespeople who moved with practiced ease. Engines hummed as customers test drove their dreams. But if you knew what to look for, there was more happening behind those shiny walls than anyone cared to admit. Across the street, under the shade of a fading gas station awning, sat a weathered Dodge Ram, its paint faded and wheels dusty, just like its driver. Solomon Reed didn't look like the founder of a multi-million-dollar dealership chain. He wasn't dressed in a designer suit or standing tall in a perfectly polished dress shoe. No, he was in a well-worn flannel shirt, with scuffed boots and faded jeans. His baseball cap was pulled low, shadowing his face, with a few days' worth of stubble on his chin. Solomon had crafted his persona carefully, right down to the slight limp he'd developed over the years, a signal of hard labor, something to throw off anyone who might get too curious about who he really was. This wasn't just a test to see how customers were treated, this was about experiencing it firsthand. The moment he stepped foot into his dealership, he was no longer the CEO, he was Marcus Taylor, a small business owner from States Lee, just another customer looking for a truck. As he sat in the truck, breathing in the familiar scent of diesel and leather, Solomon's mind went back. The dealership hadn't changed much over the years, and that was the problem. It hadn't just been the trucks that had grown over the years, it was the way they did business. A few complaints here and there, a negative REVYEW, fees that didn't match online quotes, contracts that shifted like sand beneath your feet, all whispers at first, but they all pointed to the same thing. Something was wrong. It started small, but Solomon had been getting more letters from customers, some of them desperate, like the retired veteran whose SAVYNGS had been stripped from him through hidden fees and shady contracts. Every time Solomon forwarded it to corporate compliance, the answer was always the same: we've looked into it. No violations found. But Solomon knew the truth. Lies rarely walked alone. They brought their friends. They brought patterns, whispers, and silences that spoke louder than words. His eyes locked on the tall figure standing by the showroom window, Eli Carter, the new sales manager. Handsome, polished, too polished. Solomon didn't trust him, and that's why he was standing across the street, pretending to be someone else today. Solomon had a gut feeling about Eli. A gut feeling that Eli had a hand in what was happening behind those shiny doors. Solomon took a deep breath, stepped out of his truck, and crossed the lot. His boots crunched on the gravel, the familiar sound a little off in the silence. Everything about the place was meant to give off an air of trust. The polished floors, the chrome accents, the carefully crafted image. But Solomon knew what the dealership had become. It was a facade, hiding the greed behind it. "Morning, sir," a voice called out. Solomon turned and saw a young salesman coming toward him. The man's shirt was a little too tight, his smile a little too practiced. "What can I help you with today? Something tough, or something pretty?" The line was meant to be playful, but Solomon heard the judgment behind it, the default assumption wrapped in sales charm. He offered a half-smile, playing the role of Marcus Taylor as he always had. "Name's Marcus. Been SAVYing up for a while now. Need something that can haul, not pose for pictures. Run a hauling business out near States Lee. Lots of weight. Rough roads. I don't need chrome. I need grit." The salesman, Damien, extended his hand, shaking it with a firm, calloused grip. "Well, you've come to the right place. I'm Damien, been with Summit for about 6 months. 6 months. Just enough time to get trained in whatever this place had become." Solomon listened as Damien launched into the usual sales pitch, asking about towing requirements, budget, and preferences. They walked down the rows of trucks, stopping in front of a sleek, graphite-colored 2021 GMC Sierra 1500. "This one here's a heavy-duty package," Damien said, pointing at the truck. "Just over due law 40,000, but we have a few incentives I might be able to work in. And it comes with our Summit Protection Package, covers everything you'd need." Solomon tilted his head. "That package included in the price?" Damien hesitated, just for a split second. But to Solomon, that hesitation was glaring. "It's standard with our trucks now," Damien said smoothly, recovering quickly. Most customers appreciate the peace of mind it provides. Solomon squinted at the price sticker, noticing the small discrepancy. What's in that package? Oh, extended warranty, tire protection, dent repair, roadside assistance, the usual. But I'll go over it in detail if you're seriously considering it. Solomon nodded slowly, keeping his suspicions to himself. That package wasn't standard. It was an optional add-on, created to pad the dealership's profits. He climbed into the truck, trying to get a feel for it, but his mind kept wandering back to the warning signs. This wasn't right. Mind if I pop the hood? He asked. Sure, Damien said, stepping ahead and pulling the latch. Solomon leaned over the engine, scanning it, not for the specs, but for the subtle reactions of the salesman. Damien glanced toward the showroom twice. The second glance lingered longer than the first. Solomon followed his line of sight to Eli Carter, standing behind the glass, arms folded, staring intently. It wasn't a glance of curiosity. It was a glance of control. Eli wasn't watching the sale. He was watching the process. As Solomon and Damien took the truck for a test drive, Solomon remained silent, observing the whole dynamic. Damien kept the conversation light, mentioning monthly bonuses and how much he made from helping people upgrade their lives. Solomon nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He could see the pattern, the emotional manipulation, the urgency, the sales techniques that were meant to pull on the heartstrings before the customer even had a chance to think logically. Back at the dealership, the atmosphere shifted. It went from open friendliness to something much colder, more transactional. They sat at a desk near Eli's office, and Solomon could feel the tension building. It was like stepping into a different world, a world where the deal had already been made in the backrooms, and the customers were just a means to an end. As Damien entered the fees and charges into the system, Solomon asked a simple question. What kind of processing fees are we talking about? Before Damien could answer, a voice broke through from Eli's office. And I'm telling you that's not what we agreed on. Solomon turned his head slightly. He didn't want to seem nosy, but he had to see what was happening. There, across the desk from Eli, sat Gregory Miller, a man whose life seemed to be unraveling before Solomon's eyes. He was clutching a manila folder with a photo of his children peeking out. Solomon recognized the desperation in his face. This man was being taken advantage of, just like his own father had been years ago. Eli, with his polished demeanor, responded coldly. You should have read the contract more carefully. The fees are listed clearly. Solomon's stomach twisted. He wasn't just watching a customer get scammed, he was watching everything he stood for slowly fade away. Gregory Miller's voice softened, barely audible. Please, I've got 3 kids. My oldest just got into college. This truck was supposed to help me through her first year. Eli didn't flinch. You have 2 options, Mr. Miller. Either you come up with the additional amount by Friday, or the sale is void, and your deposit is non-refundable. The trap was set. Clean, calculated. It was a system of manipulation designed to make people give up more than they could afford, all while pretending it was part of the deal. Solomon clenched his fists, his body aching to stand up and shout, but he held back. He needed to understand this machine before he tore it apart. With careful calm, he turned back to Damien. Before we finish anything, I'd like a full breakdown, line by line. No surprises. Damien hesitated, then nodded, typing slowly now. Of course. I'll get that for you. As Damien entered the charges, Solomon's mind raced. He knew what he was seeing. This wasn't just a bad deal. This was systemic corruption. And it wasn't just Eli, it was a culture, a machine designed to take advantage of people. Solomon stood up slowly, his voice low but firm. I'd like to speak to your manager. Eli's reaction was immediate. Irritation, then calculation, then that polished smile slipping back into place. Mr. Taylor, I hear you've got some questions. Let's step into my office. The door shut behind them with a soft thud, and Solomon knew this was the moment everything would change.